I find myself like narrating. I'm just like, oh yeah,
I just gotta
now
talk
I'm doing
yourself through
this.
this. Now we're
Now I'm
doing
doing
that.
this. Now we're doing that. In the
It's so awesome
meantime,
to be able to do this live. Thank you for setting it up, because you're clearly a lot more technologically savvy than I am.
well, we'll see about that. I think I do okay. I think I do all right. But so I'm looking at the Zoom meeting. I see a little icon up at the top that says live on YouTube.
That's bizarre. We are live on YouTube. We're doing it.
Oh my gosh, so cool. All right, so it looks like we are live and good to go. So without any further ado, we will just go ahead and start the show in 3, 2, 1. Hey, welcome back to Mike Seibert Radio, powered by Poddex. I am your host, and this week we're counting down our top 10 Bad Religion songs, celebrating the band's 40th anniversary. We'll talk about the longevity of the band and why they're still one of the most influential punk bands in the entire scene. Joining me on this adventure is a real rock radio guard. Messed it up. Joining me on this adventure, it's not like we're live or anything. Joining me on this adventure is a real rock radio goddess, tearing it up every weeknight, all the way from the mighty 99.9 KISW from right here in Seattle, the one, the only Taryn Daly. Welcome to Mike Seibert Radio.
Hey, that was like the most amazing introduction I've ever had in my life. Thank you. You're making me feel very special. I appreciate it. It's so good to be here. And when you first, tapped me on the shoulder for this, I was like, all in, baby. We're going to talk Bad Religion. That's a conversation I want to be a part of.
Well, it's interesting the different audiences that we're serving here, because obviously we're streaming live on the internet, but this will also be available as a audio only podcast as well. But I gotta say, you are representing in a big bad way. You got the Bad Religion flag, you got the T-shirt, you got the flannel, you got the red lipstick, you got everything going on. I am here for it. This is awesome.
Well, thank you for letting me be a part of it. This band has been one of my favorite bands since I was really young. And my mom actually took me and some friends to see Bad Religion at the Gorge. I don't even think we could drive yet. Like, I'm pretty sure that's why my mom took us. And that was actually the very first time I'd ever crowd surfed. I lost both of my shoes.
Oh my gosh.
My mom was terrified. Yeah, we had like the best time ever. So after seeing them live, they've to this day been one of the bands I've seen the most live, of all the bands that I'm obsessed with. So anytime they're in town, I'm like, I gotta be there.
That's awesome. Yeah, they're definitely one of my favorites as well. In fact, I think the only time I haven't seen them in Seattle was just this last year for Age of Unreason, and it was only because I was in Toronto for a Transformers convention, and the show was the day we were flying home, the last day of the convention, and I had bought my plane ticket the day before they announced the tour.
Oh my God.
So it was one of those
why?
things. Like, how? But yeah, that's the only Seattle show I've missed in, gosh, at least 6-7 years. I see them every time. And I mean that, in terms of bang for your buck, Bad Religion always gives the best live shows, because you're going to get like a 37 song set in like 90 minutes. And it's just, it's just no frills. They just come out, they play their songs, a little bit of banter here and there, but not really a whole lot. And then they just leave.
It's amazing.
And that's reflected in the ticket price too. It's
totally.
Like in a world where we have concerts and shows, and shows are usually like our favorite local bands, our local homies, and concerts are like your big national acts. Bad Religion finds a way to be so punk rock about it, and just kind of like, I think the last show I went to cost me maybe $20.
Nice.
It's
sure.
just like, so I mean, you get what you pay for that much and more. So yeah, I mean, so we'll talk about a lot about that longevity and other things, cool memories, cool stories, especially as we go through our top 10 songs. But first, Taryn Daly, how's that pandemic life treating you?
Oh, it's for the most part been pretty good. I've been working at home since March 13th. And at one point, like I hadn't even been in a car for 2 weeks. And then when I was finally in the car, I was like, whoa, is this what driving is? Like I felt so rusty just being in my car. One thing, because we live in Stanwood and we live in the woods, we have satellite internet, which is hot garbage.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna drag the name of the company through the mud,
Right.
but satellite internet is horrible. So we had some issues with that right out of the gate, and found some remedies with a hotspot and things like that. But for the most part, we've been at a significant disadvantage for high internet speeds where we live. But
Yeah.
all in all, we've made it work. Brad actually works for a radio station as well. So he does a morning show, and he was able to broadcast live for a couple of weeks from out in our pump house where our well pump is. He turned that into a studio. And then I made a little studio downstairs. So we kind of had our separate little radio spots. And we have a now 9-month-old baby. So we've just been kind of hunkered down at home watching him grow up. And it certainly has been kind of a blessing in disguise in that regard, because I haven't missed anything. We're both home every night, and so we get to tuck him in, wake him up, all that good stuff. So although there are days where it's so chaotic, I might cry, and maybe sometimes I do cry.
Yeah.
It's a really, really good situation, and I feel really lucky. So yeah, I miss shows, I miss breweries, I miss places, but I know as things slowly start to reopen, we'll get to do some of those things we love so much.
So are you guys approaching stage 2 yet then?
So Snohomish County will go phase 2 on Monday. Skagit County
Oh,
just
okay.
went yesterday. So and I'm super close to Skagit County. I mean, we're only,
Right.
probably 10 minutes from the line. So yeah, so Skagit's already there, and we're going to be there in a couple days.
Rock on. Very cool. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So and how about that farm life?
Oh, farm life is the only life for me. So we've actually done so many cool projects around here. We expanded our garden about 4 times the growing space. We built a greenhouse.
Oh my gosh.
Um, we salvaged gutters from a guy down the street that was doing a big job, and we put gutters on all of our outbuildings, and we started like collecting rainwater. So we have just been doing little improvements every single day, every single week. There's a new project. And so it's been really fun. That definitely helps keep me distracted from like the chaos of the world sometimes, just to go outside and like, pet the animals, work in the garden,
Yeah.
dig in the dirt, that kind of stuff. So it has been very therapeutic, to have those projects and to be on the farm.
So we talked in pre-show a little bit about bad religion puns, and I already thought of a couple. You got the chaos within, and your atomic gardens. Cool.
Yes, I
and that,
love it. You
and
nailed it.
and that's what folks can expect over the next hour or so as we go through and just rap and flap about bad religion, and then eventually share our top 10 songs. But
Yeah.
every podcast is somebody's first podcast, or in this case, live stream. Every show is somebody's first show. Let's take a quick couple minutes and let's talk a little bit about your show. Like, we were talking about that quarantine life a little bit, but you've had some really exciting stuff happen recently, like your interview with the Pretty Reckless was awesome, and a couple other things as well.
Well, the cool thing is this whole Instagram live feature
Yeah.
has really been a blessing for radio, because normally we do artist interviews when they come in, because they're touring, they're coming through town, they stop by the station, we do an interview, they play an acoustic set for us, something like that. Well, we can't do that right now, but we
Right.
can do these great Instagram live captures. So I've done a few of them. I talked to Jay Buchanan from Rival Sons. I got to interview Tyler Connolly from Theory of a Dead Man.
Oh,
I got to talk with Van Connor from the Screaming Trees from my Seattle music fanatics, and that was really fun. And then most recently, I got to do an interview with Taylor Momsen from the Pretty Reckless, and it was actually for our entire company. So the
right.
video that I did was actually syndicated to all of our radio stations all over the country, all the rock stations. So I felt really cool. I felt very privileged and very lucky to get to be the one to do that interview. That being said, she is the coolest, nicest, most humble person. Being that we're Seattle people, I know that you know the importance of the Seattle music scene to
Absolutely.
us. And she is a Seattle music fanatic. Like, she has studied Soundgarden up and down. They're actually doing their most recent album with Matt Cameron. She recorded at London Bridge with them. I mean, she is a total diehard Seattle music fan, which is always very refreshing, because I
Yeah.
think our music is awesome. But then when you hear it from somebody else who's not from here, it's very validating.
Yeah.
So that was a really exciting interview, and I'm thankful that we have these ways of connecting, whether it's Zoom or Instagram Live or StreamYard. It's definitely helping bring us together during a time where we're all apart.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what happens post COVID. It's like when we start going back to work and getting into some of those old routines. But now we've got a few new tools in our arsenal. So it'll be interesting to see how the landscape of radio presentation and interviews, and yeah, it's just going to be really interesting to see how things change. Like
For sure.
a mentor of mine is popular for saying, "The more things change, the more things change." So that's
That's
just
so true. I love that. And we'll just continue to adapt. And, and I hope that, when we do get back to live music, I look forward to the in-person stuff, but like the live music thing, I mean, that seems like it's a really far, way off. Obviously we're going to be able to go to a restaurant, drink a beer at a brewery, whatever.
yeah.
But as far as, getting to like be shoulder to shoulder with people at a venue, I don't know when we're going to get back to that. That's something that may take a minute. So I hope we can continue to use technology to at least make those connections now. But yeah, I want to hug some people when this is all over, because I miss
Yes.
hugging. I miss hugging so much.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm a hugger. I'm a handshaker. I just
Yes.
I love that just that feeling of community and contact. And I think you nailed it. I think that's the thing that folks are missing more than anything else, is just I for me at least, I'm tired of being afraid of people. like
Mm-hmm.
like I go to the grocery store and I just kind of like shrink down just a little bit. It's just like, just watching. It's how's this gonna go? And yeah,
Yeah.
it's not the way to live in a functioning society. So hopefully, we're on our way back to something that, I kind of I bristle of getting back to normal. But yeah, I mean, something that resembles normalcy, I guess, for lack of better term.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you. The human connection is very important to me.
Yes.
I thrive off of it. So yeah, when we're allowed to hug, I'm going to be giving some deep, long hugs for like days on end. It's going to be awesome.
Absolutely. Very cool. All right. So shifting gears to Bad Religion, our topic of the day, the reason for the season, as it were, 17 studio albums, 2 live albums, 4 compilations, 25 music videos, 2 EPs, and 29 singles. To say that Bad Religion is one of the most influential punk rock bands ever, I think would be an understatement. But Taryn Daly, what does Bad Religion, the band and their music, what's it mean to you?
Well, for me personally, I've always been like a little punk rocker inside. Always have been a little punk rocker. And the thing that I like the most about Bad Religion is the fact that they have this message of, don't ever stop asking questions. Don't ever stop questioning authority. That to me is punk rock. It's not just a genre of music. It's punk is a mindset and a mentality and an attitude, and it goes far beyond music. And I love the fact that their message goes so far beyond music, and songs that they wrote 30, 40 years ago
Yeah.
still apply today. And like, even as I was filling my brain with more Bad Religion songs this week just to like get myself pumped up, I was like, man, there was just song after song that it's like, it doesn't matter what year it is, these songs still ring true. And so I just think that as far as, influential bands go, even just looking at the dates of some of these songs that I love so much and when they were released, I'm like, oh my God, that was in 94 or whatever,
Yep.
but they still apply. And so I just have always really liked their message of never settling, don't ever settle, ask questions until you find answers. I just really appreciated the message behind the music. And then of course the music itself, like, even trying to, get a list of 10, I had a hell of a time because there are so many songs that have impacted my life and changed my way of thinking or made me think about things in a different way. Yeah. And to your point about seeing them live, when you see them live, you feel like Greg Graffin is like speaking to you directly. Like
Yes.
he's having a conversation with you. It's personal. So
Yeah.
I love the way that it just feels personal too.
Mhm.
So that's me rambling about my love for this band.
No, it's great, and with Greg's stage presence, what with all the pointing and the gestures and all that, and he's really good at eye contact. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's so much of that. If I end up in a car accident because I was doing too much Bad Religion, it's because I'm doing too many gestures. I already speak a lot with my hands, but yeah, there's just so much of that, and I love it, and I think that's one of the main things that that really resonates with me because it's weird because they are like the least rock stars I think in any band that I've ever come around. I mean, like, think of like some of the other contemporaries in the scene, like say like Green Day or The Offspring or something like that, where there's always a level of rock stardom to them, like a certain air of things, whereas these guys will come out in ratty t-shirts, beat up
Mhm.
jeans, and especially Greg. I one of the things I appreciate about Greg Graffin so much, I mean, aside from his intelligent lyrics and his gruff singing voice and all of that, but just that his whole aesthetic is just so aggressively uncool.
It is. He's like your nerdy uncle or something like
Yes.
that.
Yeah, I mean, a meme that I see constantly is that he looks like Mr. Garrison from South Park.
Yes,
What with
that's
the glasses,
nailed
and
it.
it's
Nailed
so
it.
funny. But yeah, I mean, there's it's just interesting how a band and a sound can be so transcendent. For me, I guess it's what I like about Bad Religion is just the meat and potato stuff, kind of like the stripped down 3-chord progression, stripped down vocals, very minimal production. But I think the thing that gets me more than anything is the intellectualism in the lyrics. Like I've commonly joked, kind of sometimes with pretension, sometimes without pretention, depending upon what kind of mood I'm in, is I've said that Bad Religion is punk rock for smart people. And that's kind of a bit of a misnomer, in that I think the power of Bad Religion's music is that it's not necessarily for smart people. It encourages you to be a smart person. Like I uh
Absolutely.
I came across their music early in high school, and you need a thesaurus to keep up with,
Totally.
and there's so much of my vocabulary that's kind of been influenced by their word choices and lyrics. Maybe even not some of the specific words, but at least kind of like the excitement about vocabulary.
Yeah.
It's just kind of cool to have that, where I don't know. I mean, I sing along with words even now that I have no idea what they mean.
Yep. And I think anybody that's listening or watching right now could
Yeah.
raise their hand if I said, who's Googled a word that they heard in a Bad Religion song. Like every
Yes.
single one of us probably has. And that's cool. They're thought provoking. So to your
Yes.
point, it's not music for smart people. It's music that will help you become a little bit more aware. It's
Yeah.
going to provoke thought, which I think is very cool. Sometimes I listen to songs by just other bands, other types of music that to me seem almost, I don't want to say meaningless, but I'm like, really? Like, you wrote that in 4 seconds. Whereas,
Yeah.
you know, a Bad Religion song, I mean, I don't know how long it takes to write a Bad Religion song, but I would imagine there's a lot that goes into that, and it's so intentional. So I really just appreciate the fact that it's like the fabric is so tightly woven. It's just, it's perfect. And another
Yes.
thing, I mean, you know, if you look at the length of a song by Bad Religion, and then you look at
Yes.
the numbers of words in the song, like they can cram a ton into a 3-minute song or less. A ton of lyrics, a ton of words, and those words that make you go, what is that? What, I need to know what that
Yeah.
means. I need to further my research on this. So it is pretty amazing what they can do with such a, you know, small window of time in a Bad Religion song.
Yeah, you're right because it is there's a lot of heady vocabulary, but the songs are also very Spartan and economical. You know, it's like we were talking about earlier, like with their live sets. Again, in a good Bad Religion set, you'll get into the 30s.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I mean, there's a vast majority of their catalog, especially the early stuff, that not a one of those songs is over 2 minutes. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
it just gets in and out, but yet as you're listening to it, you still feel like you've had a completed experience.
Mm-hmm.
There are some songs to where it's like, yeah, man, I could have used one more verse or something like that. But
Like, what happens next, Greg? Tell
yeah,
us.
yeah, exactly. And I think that's okay too, because like brevity is a special thing that not all of us yours truly here that as my fans and listeners are laughing at me, but yeah, no, brevity is not my strong suit, and I think that's one of the things that I respect about Bad Religion's music is that it's fast paced, but it's also fast, it's quick, it's brief, and it for lack of a better word.
I love it. Nailed it.
Um, Very cool. So getting into closer into the main event here and our top 10 lists. I know we were kind of talking a little bit offline, and I think even a little bit here at the top. Um, let's talk a little bit about how our lists actually came together. I mean, you know, no spoilers. We'll do it in our countdown, but I'm kind of curious. What are some of the challenges that you ran into, and kind of talk about the adventure you went through, kind of trying to put things together.
Well, and it was funny because like I have my favorite songs, and then I have like what I think are like the top 10 songs, and I kind of did like I kind of tried to marry them together. So, you know, for the most part, my list is my 10 favorite Bad Religion songs. But as far as putting them into order, I had a horrible time with that.
Yeah.
And I switched. There were things I was switching around at the last minute, and then there's stuff that's not on this list that I'm like, did you make a mistake? Are you going to be judged for this? But for me, I just tried to get a good mix of kind of what the music is about. Like I feel like I have some that incorporate religion, some that incorporate government systems, some that incorporate um, you know, mental health. So I kind of
Yeah.
was looking for like a good balance of content in these songs, while taking into consideration which are my favorite and which are kind of definitely, I would say, some fan favorites.
Yeah, because I think if I'm not mistaken, I think a lot of this our conversation started with I forget what publication it was, but somebody had put out a list of 10 Bad Religion songs, and I looked it over and I sent it over to you because I know you're as much a Bad Religion fan as I am, and I was like, well, as far as lists go, this is definitely one of them. And I thought that there were like I thought that there were some weird glaring misses. I thought that there were some bizarre choices. But it's interesting now that we're actually live and recording, and I've printed this on paper so I can't change it. I find that my list for other folks that are listening will probably find it's very much the same way. It's like, oh, you put that on there but not that. It's like, yeah, it's really hard
Yeah.
when you start kind of trying to compile it. For me at least, the process was similar to yours, but a little different in that, like, I knew almost right away what my bottom three were and what my top three were.
Hmm.
Those were I think I made like one change as we went, but the thing that I had the hardest time with was the middle. So what I ended up doing was going through like the entire catalog. I had this like in a spreadsheet somewhere, and I was like, yes, yes, no, 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 yes, 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 and I made a list of like 50,
Oh,
and then chopped it down to like 25, and then chopped it down to like 15, and then all of this again just to get the middle of my list.
yeah.
So that's so I'll be very interested to see where that all compares, and what folks might happen to think about that.
And it
And
is, I mean, making a list for Bad Religion fans is stressful because you're
oh
like,
my
to
gosh.
your point, people are going to be like, well, that was weird or whatever, like it's anybody that's a diehard fan of any band, I think is going to heavily scrutinize anybody's top
Yeah.
10 list. And one thing I did find very interesting, and this was not intentional,
Mm.
I have, of my 10, 9 different albums represented. I only have one album with 2 songs on this list. And that was not, I swear to you, not intentional at
Oh
all.
my
I was
gosh.
like, this is really crazy how this all worked out. So
I'm really excited. I mean, I was already. I mean, I've been buzzing around the studio, bouncing off the walls all day because I've just been waiting for time to come around because, like, we've just been so hyped and so excited. But I think the time is here. I think the time is now. And of course, guests first and ladies first. Taryn, Daly, please lead us off with your number 10 Bad Religion song.
so my number 10 Bad Religion song is off the album New Maps of Hell, and it's Dearly Beloved.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and that's honestly like the first time I heard that song, and that's like that album in general. Like I'm always one of those people like, oh, am I gonna like the new album? And I was almost hypercritical of that album before it even came out. And New Maps of Hell ended up being one that really resonated with me. But Dearly Beloved
Yeah.
has got to be my favorite song on that album, and makes my top 10 list.
Yeah, just barely missed it for me. I was juggling that one. The whole hook of I can't relate with you, that it's just so deeply resonant, for because a lot of their songs, in this case it's explicitly about going to church and a religious experience, but you can apply that to any kind of walk of life. Like when I encountered New Maps of Hell, I was kind of in a transitional phase, like doing some job changes and things like that. So some of those songs kind of hit me in that headspace, and Dearly Beloved was one of those that kind of took on a meaning that was different than what it was intended to, but
Love it.
still really great. So my number 10, and I fashioned this so that I made sure it was the first song that I talked about because it is the first Bad Religion song that I came across. And they say you never forget your first. But for me, my number 10 from 1994's soundtrack to the movie Clerks, it's Leaders and Followers.
Nice. Good choice in movie and song.
Exactly. And so for me, Clerks is such a special movie because it introduced me to the world of Kevin Smith and kind of like this realm of meta comedy that we really hadn't seen before. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you've got Clerks talking about Star Wars and all of this other pop culture stuff that's very, very common now, but in 1994 was incredibly revolutionary. And I remember watching the movie and they get to like the infamous funeral scene, and I hear the song, I perked up. It almost threw me out of the movie for a second. I'm like, what
What
is
is this?
this? And I got the soundtrack album and burned through it, and I was like, oh, Bad Religion, huh? And I think maybe I had heard other Bad Religion songs before, but I don't think I really it didn't really click as like, oh, this is a band I need to pay attention to, but it'll forever have that connotation with Clerks and with Bad Religion, two very special, passionate things for me that kind of emerged at the same time. So that's my number 10, Leaders and Followers.
I love it. Just a quick sidebar. Brad and I went as Jay and Silent Bob for Halloween this last year. It was a big success. And Kevin Smith, he retweeted my picture. Now we're not talking about Bad Religion at all, but he retweeted my picture, and I was so excited. So I'm with you. He's a god.
Yeah, so cool.
All right, should I give you my number 9?
Yes, please.
The number 9 is the title track from Generator. It's Generator.
That is on my list as well.
Yay! Okay, so where did it fall on your list?
You'll find out. It's it is significally higher. Let's just put it that way for now. But yeah, Generator is on my list, and I do have a story that actually no, I'll tell the story now. But you first, please. Thoughts on Generator?
Well, so to me, as far as Generator goes, that was probably one of the first Bad Religion songs I'd ever heard. That was definitely early BR for me, at least early discovering BR. Sure. And like when they were talking about like the blood on my door, I just thought like, I mean, some of the imagery in that song was so so rich and so vivid. And I was like a young kid, you know, listening to some of these lyrics that like made me go like, holy cow, there's music out there like this. Like I had no idea that music like that existed. So yeah, it just really like turned me on to the fact that there are songs out there that are more advanced for someone my age, to get me thinking about, you know, other things, bigger things than me, stuff that's outside of like what would be considered popular. So that definitely was one of those songs that just like sparked my interest right out of the gate, because there's just, it's nothing but imagery, you know, like a hummingbird in silence, like the blood on my door, it's the Generator, all of that. It just is very vivid. So I really had to put that one on my list for sure.
Absolutely. And for me, it's one of those ones because I mean, it just, not only does it start off so strong, I mean, you know, just like a rock, you know, and all of that, but it's a mission statement for that entire album.
Oh yeah.
And for me at least though, so as I mentioned, my pick is a bit higher, and I actually chose a different version. I chose the live version, aka the festival version, off of Tested from 1997, and I did so for a very specific reason. That was not the first time I heard that song, but I think it was the first time I had heard the festival version.
Sure.
And so it just, you know, and even in that version in Tested, he the crowd is trying to sing along with him, and it's all in the wrong key, so they're singing faster than Greg is singing. He's like, I think I started you in the wrong key, sorry about that. And it's so fun, but there's an ad lib in there that I think it was 2 years ago when they were here in Seattle. He did it actually gave the audience a choice. It's like, okay, so we're gonna do Generator. You want the album version, or do you want the festival version? And it dominated. So he starts off in like the slow build up to it, but there's an ad lib in there, and he's like, yeah, there's an ugly laughing man, he's standing right beside me, and that's in the Tested version. So as I'm singing along, I sing that out loud.
Oh, that's awesome.
Dude standing next to me kind of like does this side eye thing. I'm like, oh, sorry, it's the Tested version.
It's a thing.
Yeah, he's like, it's all good, but yeah, it caught him off guard because I said out loud, "There's an ugly laughing man. He's standing right beside me." So
that's so fantastic.
So yeah, so for me, Generator has a couple different meanings for me. It's a classic. So my number 9 is probably one of the most bizarre and maybe even baffling choices on my list. My number 9 is from 2013's Christmas Songs. It's the leadoff track. It's Hark the Herald Angels Sing. and
Yes.
I love that album so much. One, it's just 19 minutes of Christmas songs, and it's great. But this is a example of me kind of trying to put my money where my mouth is, because I remember posting about this at the time when it came out and saying, well, not only is this the best version, or rock version, not traditional standard version of this song, but I think this is in my top Bad Religion songs of all time, because it starts off with cold vocals that just chills you to the bone. And then like a third of the way through, like the next verse, it kicks in with the full band, and it becomes everything you want about a Bad Religion song. It's got the fast drums, it's got the chord progression, it's got the it got the multi-part harmonies. But there's something about the way that Greg sings. I can hear the exclamation point in Hark the Herald. He's like, Hark and it always sticks with me. And every time around the holidays, I give that a good handful of spins. So,
Absolutely.
so that's me putting my money where my mouth is. I can't say that it's one of my all-time favorite Bad Religion songs and not put it on my list, but that's my number 9, Hark the Herald Angels Sing, off of Christmas Songs.
You know what's so funny? I hadn't even considered that album like for this, but that is, I mean, I listened to Bad Religion Christmas songs on repeat basically
Yeah.
the whole season. And I love when it goes from that like just open singing at the beginning, and then the guitar goes, yeah,
Yes.
it's just great.
Yes.
And then at the very end, when it slows it down, it's that glory to, he goes all slow with it. It's great.
Yes.
So I'm into it.
Well, and I think what makes Christmas songs and any of their Christmas covers that they've done, what makes them so special is that they do it earnestly.
Mhm.
There's no tongue in cheek. And again, these are heavily with religious themes, but instead of doing it with, a smart alecky perspective, they just do it as straight ahead and as earnestly as possible. So it is weird to hear Greg Graffin singing about Jesus our Lord, but man, they just sell it, and it is just so iconic.
Good choice. Very good choice.
Thank you.
So my number 8, I'm going into title tracks from albums is kind of what the next few are.
Sure.
Number 8 is No Control from No Control. And I just think that's, again, like in talking earlier about how the songs that they wrote decades ago still resonate. I mean, that song would have been applicable 100 years ago. It'll be applicable 100 years from now.
Yes.
As far as just, the way that we are in our lives, that we have to answer to all of these different things, whether it's work or the government or whatever it might be. Like, we're not really in command, we're not really in control. It's just really interesting to listen to, a song that very accurately explains what like human culture is.
Yes.
That we are, you even talk about like leaders and followers, like, everybody has to be a leader or a follower. Kind of No Control makes me think a little bit along those lines as well. That at the end of the day, we're going to live, we're going to die. We have no control over that. We're going to go through the motions like everybody else. And then when we're gone, the next phase comes in. So that's just kind of one of those songs that I always really enjoyed, with the fact that it transcends generations, it transcends centuries. So I gotta put that one on my list.
Absolutely. Great choice. That was another narrow miss for me. Didn't make my top 10. But the thing that I always love about that, because so many of these are just great sing-along songs. And there's something to that last refrain of, we have no control, and it just goes right into it. And it's when he holds that long note, that's
no control.
So good.
This isn't a karaoke night. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm going to keep singing.
You know what? I could do that all ding dong day. It's so great. And it's interesting though, because like I've never been brave enough to try any Bad Religion songs at karaoke. And I think you need the harmonies though. It's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
so like if you get like a couple friends, to do some backup, you probably got something there. But yeah,
Yes.
yeah, by yourself, it's and again, Greg's voice is just so it's I mean, it's a great punk rock voice because it's gruff, it's gravelly, but it's also smooth and intelligible. I mean, I'm a lead singer guy, like some folks are, guitar guys or they're lyrics guys. I'm all about personality the lead singer puts out. So and
Hmm.
and I think Greg Graffin is one of the greats. And
Totally.
and that actually kind of transitions really nicely to my number 8 from 2002's The Process of Belief. It's a single, it's a big hit, but it needs a spot on the list. I'm going with Sorrow.
Nice. Oh, you know what? When I went through my list, Brad was judging me for not having it on my list. So I'm glad it's on yours. He was like, dude, what about Sorrow?
Yeah,
I know. I didn't have enough room.
it's one of those ones to where it's almost too big, right? And it I'll be honest, it didn't make my original cut. So and it was once I kind of reshuffled, I'm like, yes, it's the big song, but and that's why it needs to be on the list. And just re-listening to it, because since it is so big, I don't revisit it often. But I'm a I am a lifelong AC/DC fan, and what I have found is that any song could be made better with cannon fire.
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
so
Like, we know this to be true.
exactly. So that's why Sorrow is my number 8.
I love it. That song also, I have cried seeing it live in concert.
Oh
That,
my
I mean,
gosh.
it's a very powerful song. So good choice.
Yeah, there's Greg has done a couple different stripped down versions of it, and again, it will tear your heart out.
Oh yeah, for
Oof.
sure. So are we at number 7? Is that where we are now?
Yes, yeah, you're number 7.
So another title track from an album. I went with Suffer. Um,
Yes.
I love Suffer. I don't know. Maybe it's on your list. I know it is on a lot of lists out there. But I think it just kind of speaks to what it is to be human in
Yes.
a society that is, has flaws.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just another one that kind of makes that comparison to, like, that we're all the same. We're all suffering in some way. Every single
Yes.
person is suffering in some way. Doesn't matter if you're poor or you're wealthy. There's something in your life that's suffering. Maybe it's, whether it's financial or in your heart or in your mind. Like, everybody is suffering. So that's why I chose that song. I just think it's super powerful. I think they're all super powerful
Oh
songs, but
yeah.
Suffer is definitely, for me, one of the ones that just really gets me in the feels.
Absolutely. Well, and as you said so eloquently, it's so multifaceted and so multi-layered. We've talked about that in context with several other songs, but yeah, it's one of those things to where it's like you've got it on surface, but then like an onion, there's layers,
Mm-hmm.
and then depending upon what your life experience is that particular day that you listen to it, it takes on so many different meanings, and I love that so many of their songs have that chameleon texture to it, to where
Mm-hmm.
it's just and that's just good songwriting.
Oh, absolutely.
If you can have it in multiple contexts, and even like as you age, it's like that song meant something different to me when I was 20 than it means to
Mm-hmm.
me when I'm 40, that kind of thing. But yet it's the same song. Did not make my list, and at this point I think I need to make a confession to you
Uh-oh.
and the audience. The thing that I have noticed as with my re-listens and compiling my lists is that the a lot of the older stuff doesn't quite resonate and click with me is some of the newer stuff. And I think the reason for that is, we all have our entry points, right? And whatever our entry point is kind of what becomes our thing, the thing that we're more precious about. So I came to a lot of the back catalog via the All Ages album, the that
Sure.
compilation that came out in 96 maybe. I think it was after both No Substance and New America, so maybe that's in the early 2000s. I'm getting this all mixed up, doesn't matter. But I came to it much later, and it's raw, it's visceral, and it is kind of a stark, weird contrast from some of the more contemporary stuff. So like if you listen to, say, Suffer, No Control, Generator, and you compare that with, say, Process of Belief, or even Age of Unreason, the newer stuff, it's almost like, and this is kind of a bit of a tangent, but follow me here for a sec. I think there's kind of three eras of Bad Religion. There's Genesis from like 1980 through kind of the beginning of the Epitaph era. Basically. So, oh gosh, I'm not even sure how to mark that, but basically you've got from maybe Recipe for Hate through the end of the Atlantic era. That's kind of an era, and then you've got the new stuff. When
Yeah.
they went back to Epitaph with Process of Belief, and it's interesting because like a lot in the fan community doesn't necessarily speak highly of some of those albums, like between New America and No Substance, and even Stranger Than Fiction and Recipe for Hate. All those kind of get lumped in one era, and there's obviously classics, but it is weird because like I think that fans can be very partisan about it. So I guess in a sense that's my confession, in that like the earlier stuff doesn't quite it's not the stuff that I specifically call to when I kind of gravitate towards the newer stuff. Like I really really like the new album. I didn't include anything in there because I think it's too new. It's kind of needs to sit for a few, but yeah, it's just one of those weird thought exercises when you think of a band that has a 40-year longevity history, how you can have those different eras, and how those different
Yeah.
eras can mean different things to different folks. So that being said, all of this is set up for my number 7. So your number 7 was Sorrow. I'm sorry, your number 7 was Suffer, and my number 7 is from the New America, There Will Be a Way.
Nice.
And I included that because that was a late addition, and it's a song that's been rattling around in my head for the last week or so. What's going on with civil unrest? We've got race riots on the scale of the early '60s, and the not just the lyrics, but also just kind of like it's a very harmony heavy song, so it's a lot of and it has a um warming texture to it. It's like, now it's time to set the agenda, learn the past, make it last, share the wealth, hold your fire, conserve life, make it right, kill the hate, negotiate, there will be a way. And it just I cannot get that out of my head, so much so to where I was going to talk about it at length in my honorable mentions, but it's like it's resonating so hard with me right now.
Yeah.
Like last month, my most of my list probably would have been different. Maybe a couple months
Yeah.
from now, my list might be significantly different. But for now, that song is it's just really hitting me in a big bad way. So that's my number 7. There Will Be a Way.
Nice choice. My number 6 is Atheist Peace from Empire Strikes First. And I don't talk about my, I don't talk about religion much in general because it can be a very polarizing conversation.
Of course.
But I have been an atheist my entire life. And so that song just always really kind of, I don't know, it felt like finally a song was written for people like me.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of music out there that is faith based, or a lot of people are afraid to even admit that they're atheists because they think they're going to be judged because there are so many people that practice different religions and things like that. But for me, I have always felt an atheist piece, and
Yeah.
so that song just really, again, it felt like a song that was for me. And we talk about the different wars of the world that go back as long as as time has existed. And there's so many wars that were started because of
Yes.
religion. And I'm not saying that religion is bad. I mean, I can tell you many great things about religion, and things that you can learn in different books of worship. I'm not saying anything negative, but there is something to be said about that some of these great wars were kind of started over a difference of opinion in what to believe. And there is something to be said about an atheist piece. So that song just always for me felt very personal. And I had to put it in there. That was one, when you're talking about the middle and where to put things,
Yeah.
I struggled at first. I think I even had it at like number 3, and then I bumped it back a little bit. But
Yeah.
I definitely that's one that the first time I heard it on that Empire Strikes First album, that whole album really was a super important album to me. But
Yeah.
that song just was like, that was my jam for sure.
So how do you feel longevity wise about the albums that are more timely? So like for example, Empire Strikes First was very much a response to the Bush era. Um
Yeah.
much like Age of Unreason is definitely a response to the Trump administration, to the point where I remember talking to some friends like right around the time of the election. And, the result was what it was. And I thought for a sec, as I was, kind of desperate for silver linings, I'm like, I bet you we're going to get a really good Bad Religion album out of this. And,
And word on the street is that they are writing another album now, and I am so curious to hear what they could be up to right now, and
yeah.
just even 2020 as a whole. Like I hope
Oh,
they're not done writing. I hope that they write it out for a little bit, because I think that this year is going to be an extremely significant year for many reasons. But I
yeah.
think what will the Bad Religion album sound like next? Because I feel like we're going to need it. We're going to need it. These albums, to your point, they like put a stamp in time, and remind us kind of where we came from, and what we went through in certain eras and certain presidential times, whatever it might
Yes.
be. So I love that it's almost kind of like a little bit of a history lesson or a little bit of a trip back in time. I think have done a fantastic job of always kind of capturing the feelings and the situations that we lived through. Yeah, so I'm all about that. I love that they make a point of remembering and putting lyrics to the reality of the times. So yes, I'm all about it.
Very cool. Well, and I wanted to chat about that for just a moment, because so far most of the conversation has involved kind of like the timelessness. Like there's a timelessness to Suffer, No Control, Generator, Sorrow, and yeah, so kind of like those albums that put their stamp on things, those are also really special, and in a way are kind of a time capsule as
Yeah,
well.
totally.
So,
They have such a good mix of the timeless and the, like the current, I guess. The
yeah,
timeless and
timely.
the current. Yeah.
Yeah.
Timeless and the timely. I like that.
There it is. There it is. Very cool. All right. So that was your number 6 atheist piece. My number 6 is from, we were talking about the Atlantic era earlier. Mine is from 1998's No Substance. It is Strange Denial.
Oh, that is a good choice.
And it's a deep cut.
Yeah, it
And
is.
and it's one of those ones where there are certain tunes that just stick with you, you know, whether it's a riff, whether it's a lyric, whether it's a refrain. And for me, it's a lot of those specifically, like the, I mean, the riff is just iconic, just a da na 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 na, and I constantly get that stuck in my head. But one of the things that I like, and I was really trying to think about if there's another song that does this, Bad Religion or no, but there's very effective use of pausing in
Ah, yes.
in this song, where, and even like you can hear Greg taking a breath where he's like, I feel a strange denial, and it just, and I've referred to it in some of the groups on Facebook as a weaponized pause, because it's one of those things to where it makes you stop and pay attention to it.
Hmm.
And I think just for the creativeness and innovativeness of that, and again, it's just so catchy, and it's so resonant and sticks with me. So that is why it's my number six, Strange Denial from No Substance.
Good choice. Pausing is powerful, by the way. That's what they
Yeah.
say. Pausing is powerful.
Well,
Um,
and that's what they teach us, like in speaking and stuff too. You
yeah,
know, it's like, you
totally.
know, it's okay to
Take a
just
minute.
stop for a sec. Yeah.
Yep, totally.
And I think that's thoroughly illustrated in this tune. Man, top half, man.
I know.
It's getting real now.
Getting juicy.
Yeah,
My
we're
number my number five is Off Process of Belief, and it's Bored and Extremely Dangerous, which I really liked because there's like a, you know, there's a stigma that has existed for so long about talking about mental health. And this, what year did Process of Belief come out? Was that early 2000s?
2002.
2002. Thank you. So, you know, I think even now we're still struggling to end the stigma of talking about mental health. But I love that this song really kind of addressed mental health, about being bored and extremely dangerous to yourself. You know,
Yeah.
you're alone. You don't have anybody to talk to. Nobody's listening to you. You know, and you can be, you know, it's just basically like talking about the fact that, you know, that being bored and extremely dangerous, you know, is a very real thing for a lot of us that may be struggling with, you know, various mental health concerns.
Yeah.
So that, you know, again, a song written in, you know, or released in 2002 that we can still very much relate to today. And it is very, very good to see that in 20 years we have made progress as far as talking about mental health and addressing it, and knowing that, like, hey, you're not alone and somebody's here, somebody can listen. That's why I think Bored and Extremely Dangerous is such a great and cool Bad Religion song.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we talked a lot earlier about some of the appeal of Bad Religion songs being kind of like that stripped down production. This runs the other direction and has insane production value. And it, even in like your headphones, you know, there's a lot of stereo panning, like with the alarm clocks and the layered vocals. There's a lot going on in that song, and I like that that's a tradition that kind of held over for a couple albums, where like the last pair of songs are like kind of like they're I don't want to say experimental, but they're outside of the norm, you know, where
Yeah,
it's like
definitely.
I mean, it's very much a Bad Religion song, but it is a different Bad Religion song because of that more elaborate production, I think.
Certainly.
Very cool. All right. So my number five, we are going to 1994's Stranger Than Fiction, the first Bad Religion album that I bought. You know, so I mentioned that you know, I got onto Bad Religion through the Clerk. So from there, I went to the Warehouse Music Store and flipped through the things, and Stranger Than Fiction was the new album at the time. Snapped it up, and it is probably my favorite album. There are probably albums that are more complete and maybe more objectively better, but again, in context of you never forget your first, I love that record through and through. My pick for number five is Infected.
Guess who has that on her list?
Nice. Very cool. Very cool. I mean, you can't not. I mean, we talked earlier about, some of the bigger songs maybe not having a spot in, our top 10. But yeah, I'm so glad that you included that. Tell me about your thoughts about it.
Yeah. So well, first of all, I remember when I first, I think I wasn't super familiar with the song. And then when I heard it, it was like later. And I thought it
Oh,
sounded like at the time I thought it sounded like a new Bad Religion song. And then I was like, oh, this is
yeah.
on Stranger Than Fiction. How did I don't know how I missed it. So I remember thinking it sounded new to me, which I guess is kind of a little bit of a unicorn thing
Yeah.
with Bad Religion, because I feel like their new music sounds very much like their new music, and then like some of those classic songs sound a little more classic. And I kind of thought Infected sounded a little bit more modern. But I mean, it's just a really cool song. It's almost sounds like the imbalance of the what is the word I'm looking for? Oh my gosh, my brain is totally blanking right now.
Mm.
But basically, like almost like codependence, I guess, in the song
Yes.
"Infected." That's
Oh,
the word
oh,
I was
very
looking
much
for.
so.
So yeah, so I'm all about it. It's a little higher on my list, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
a really good
Well, and there are some bizarre lyric choices in there because it makes me wonder. I mean, because like some of the other albums in that Atlantic era is very much Greg dealing with his divorce. I wonder if Infected is maybe like the first part of that because yeah, there again there's some bizarre lyric choices in there like you're clear as a heavy lead curtain, want to drill you.
one. Yeah,
Like an ocean, we can work it out. Now I'm running out. And it's like, and it's one of those things where like in language, like punctuation helps. And it's like, where does the punctuation go in those sentences?
yeah,
you know,
for sure.
is it like you're clear as a heavy lead curtain period? um
And that, yeah,
I want to drill you period, or is it you're clear as a heavy lead curtain comma want to drill that kind of thing. It's just it's one of those things, if you think about it too much, it it just kind of messes with you a little bit.
my mess with your head a little bit. Well, and I just
Yeah.
think that it's very creative. You and me have a disease. You affect me. You infect me. I am
Yes.
afflicted. You're addicted. It's just the cool. I don't know,
Yeah.
juxtaposition of those words and things like
Yes.
that. It's very creative, very clever.
Well, and they've got a lot of those cool rhyming refrains as well. And again, brilliant use of the harmonies. And it's
Oh
just,
my
I
gosh.
mean, to the point where sometimes I think folks that don't like Bad Religion, I think some of the criticism is that it kind of comes across as monotone at times. And Infected is one of those ones where you could say that, like especially in that section that you were just talking about, it can to a non-fan's ears kind of sound kind of monochromatic, for
Yeah,
lack of a better term, and kind of like a weird droning monotone.
I
um
get it.
yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I love it. It's a great tune. So yeah, so that's Infected at number 5 for me. Your number 4.
My number 4 is off Recipe for Hate, and it's American Jesus.
All right.
I don't know if you've ever watched the music video. I assume you have.
Yes,
Okay, so that
let's
music
talk
video,
about
I
it. Yeah.
remember, oh my God, the first time I watched it, I was like, whoa, this is like really intense in like a good way. If anybody that hasn't seen it should just watch it. But the
Hmm.
fact that it's him I think he's riding a bike through like Los Angeles, and everybody around him is carrying huge crosses, just
Yeah.
just slogging these crosses around going up escalators and walking all over the place. And yeah, it just kind of and then of course the words to the song, "We've got the American
Yeah.
Jesus." I mean, when you talk about what is the American Jesus, it's like the American Christianity is very different than Christianity in other parts of the world. And it just kind of there's a little bit of that, like, oh, holier than thou, we've got the American Jesus, like,
Hmm.
and you can come here but go home because we've got the American Jesus, kind of a thing. And it
Exactly.
talks, it definitely brings up the separation of church and state type of situation as well, with we helped build the president's estate, and
Yep.
all these different um, themes about the American Jesus. And did you know that Eddie Vedder does the backing vocals on that song?
Oh, really? I didn't know that. I know that he's on what is it? Watch It Die, I think. On
Something, yeah, he's on one other song. I think he's
yeah,
on
he's
one other song in that
yeah,
album.
in Recipe. But yeah, no, I did not know that actually.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I mean such a powerful song. It is on my list as well. That has a lot of special significance for me as well. I've actually used it as a theme song for my podcast for quite some time. I don't now. I mean, I used it for like a year and a half or something like that, to where and it was just another one of those things where the riff just sticks with you. And I was
Yeah.
thinking about how I wanted to do the imaging for my podcast, and I was listening to various Bad Religion songs because that was kind of the vibe I wanted. But then I just kept hearing da 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 da, and I couldn't shake it, so much so to where that's just what I used.
Yeah.
And it's just classic. And one of the things that's also special and spectacular about American Jesus is that it's so subversive, in that it's all of the things that you said, but it's also an indictment on American nationalism as well. So yeah, I mean, and again, it's layers on layers. I saw a video on YouTube. It's pretty popular in the Bad Religion fan community, but it's like there's these YouTubers, they're a couple and they're Christians, and they watch punk rock videos. I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but they watched American Jesus, and you can see where just through their body language, they got chips on their shoulders and they're just ready for it. But then you can see the wheels turning, the arms uncross as they're leaning closer and listening, and really understanding the meaning of those lyrics. Aside from the religious criticism, it's also
Sure.
a brilliant indictment on American culture as well. So yeah, it's just powerful. And you had mentioned the music video, and I wanted to one last thing before we move on. There were a few of the music videos, including American Jesus, that were directed by Gore Verbinski. He's the dude that directed them Pirates of the Caribbean movies.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because, like, if you go back and watch like that first Pirates movie, it at times it has kind of that weird sepia tone that
Yep.
the American Jesus video has. So, and
Oh,
there's
that's too funny. I
there's
did not know that.
yeah, there's and it's weird. It's kind of like weird filmmaking things. It's kind of where he cut his teeth. He did three, 4 or 5 Bad Religion songs, and then like a couple No Effect songs, maybe an MXPX as well. But yeah, so he kind of did some like 90s punk, and then suddenly he becomes like this auteur filmmaker that gets snapped up by Disney to do pirate movies. But
Wild.
there is some weird connective tissue. If you go watch those movies again, as well as the music videos, you'll kind of see some you might look at it through a different kaleidoscope. It's a very
Interesting. Thank you
yeah.
for that tidbit.
Yeah, totally. So, and that's your number 4, American Jesus from the Recipe for Hate. And we're just gonna bounce right back to you, because my number 4, like the blood on my door, is The Generator. So
Bam.
that's
Yeah,
that's
I
where I
love
put
it.
that. And again, and I think I put it so high as one because, quite frankly, I wanted to make sure that I had a not just a classic, but a early era classic high up on the list. Just to make sure I don't get flamed too much. But no, like, I mean, again, like the story I shared earlier, and just, I mean, again, it's such a great song, and it is so fun and great live. I love it.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, yes. Well, then I'm going to have to throw it back to you because my number
Okay.
3 is Infected. So
Ah, oh man, it's getting to it now.
No,
Oh man.
I feel like we might have some crossover in 1 and 2 also. I don't know. I have this feeling in my heart.
I think so. I think so. We'll see how this goes. So my number three is a song that is incredibly special to me. And it's one of those things where I don't even know where to start talking about it. So I'm just gonna start talking about it. From 1996's The Gray Race, it is the concluding track, It's Cease.
Oh, I love that song. Oh
I
my gosh.
it's heart-wrenching.
It
And
is.
I think that's why it has stuck with me ever since I came across it. It's like, and again, I a lot of common themes and repeating myself at this point, but like, certain riffs, that opening riff just kind of gets you. But then, it starts off as just kind of like a regular bread and butter Bad Religion song. But then once it kind of slows down and gets into the first verse, Blacktop Pavement, Cover Me, and just, it gets more progressively sad. It's a sad, sad song.
Yeah.
And to the point where, like, when he gets to the last part of the last verse, he talks about, grave memorial, hewn white stone, like a comforting caress of a mother or a friend you've always known. It invokes such pain and significance. What was once
I'm
is
getting
reduced to
goosebumps
memory.
right now,
Yeah,
by the way.
I know. And my throat clenches every time I hear it. And it's a song and an album that I have been with for 25 years, and
Mhm.
even now it still has that same effect on me as it did when I first heard it. And and not to be incredibly morbid, but I have made it known that, when Big Mike's time comes to an end, I would
No.
really like that, because the thing also that is so um heartbreakingly powerful about it is just how abruptly it ends. It's just
Cease.
everything must, and
Yeah.
it just ends. um I like the other versions of it as well. Like Greg Graffin does like a piano version of it. He does an
Oh
acoustic
yes, I've
version.
seen that live before.
Yeah.
Oh.
And again, it just tears your heart out. But it's like, this, I think, so 1996, I'd have been maybe a freshman, sophomore in high school. And I think this was one of my first encounters with music that truly made me feel something. And I mean, aside from the usual like joy and calamity that you get from punk rock, that this was something different. This was
Sure.
something significant and special. And again, the only description I can use for it is heart-wrenching, because it just,
Mhm.
again, it is so sad. It's just so sad. But
That's
it
a really good pick, Mike.
thank you.
Kudos to you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'm here for that for sure.
And
Um,
it was one of those ones that, like, it started lower, and the more I thought about it, I'm like, no, it needs to be this high, because in terms of like resonance to me personally, it's just like, I can't bury it. I
yeah.
have to put it on as close to Front Street as possible. So, when I said that, like, my top and bottom were kind of locked in, this was always in that
This
mix.
was the
So
anchor. I
yeah,
love
very,
it.
very much so. So that's my
Um,
number three.
well, thank you for that. My number two, I'll be curious if this is in your top two, is
Mhm.
21st Century Digital Boy. And from Against the Grain. And
Yeah.
this one I actually toyed with my 1 and 2 for a minute. But my number one is actually, we'll get to that in a minute, but it's
Yes.
similar to your number 10. You never forget your first. And my so I put
Ah,
my first
I
is
love
my
it.
first.
I love
But
it. I love it.
21st Century Digital Boy is I just think it's something that so many people can relate to, as far as like what home life is like and what the world
Yes.
around you is like. And um, just just kind of watching mom and dad go through the motions, or
Yep.
whatever it is. It's just a really cool song. It's very, very catchy. It's super
Oh,
easy to sing along with. It's very
yes.
anthemic. Watching it live, it's always absolutely sensational. And honestly, if there's somebody out there that's not super familiar with Bad Religion, they've probably heard this song.
Exactly.
So I felt like I had to put it on my list. It's my number two.
Very good. Well, that to continue with that, I feel that 21st Century Digital Boy is the song that you give to somebody that doesn't know what Bad Religion is, because it is, it's like copyright TM Bad Religion, because it is everything that that a Bad Religion song is supposed to be. And it kind of gets, again, we've me in particular, I've got some bizarre choices on my list, but there's something about it being such a prevalent single and being everywhere, to like, I mean, arguably there was a time that you couldn't get away from it. and
Mm-hmm.
and there are fans that I would say, well within their rights, that it's overplayed and kind of overdone, and to the point where they did it twice. They did
Yeah.
it on Against the Grain, but they also redid it on Stranger Than Fiction, and that's the version that I pick as well. I like that Stranger Than Fiction version,
Yeah.
because it has the slicker production, but I do love them both also, because they are almost different. Because like,
Mm-hmm.
when I was talking earlier about different eras, you can also hear where Greg's voice kind of matures, and I don't want to say ages. That's not exactly what I mean, but it gets deeper. Whereas I think
Sure.
sometimes with like some of the early stuff, and why it doesn't always resonate with me, he sounds like he's an angry 15-year-old boy on some of those. And whereas by the time you get to the 90s stuff, he's a disaffected man. And it's
Yeah.
and those two Greg Graffins are different people.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is just influenced by their life experience and things like that as well. But yeah, that's yeah, I mean, 21st Century Digital Boy, I believe, despite being the most prevalent single, I believe it is the most prevalent Bad Religion song, for a very important reason, in that it is, again, is emblematic of everything that they are about as a band.
It's a gateway
So
song. It's a Bad Religion gateway song for sure.
it very much is. So my number two is American Jesus. So that's where I put that. Again, it's incredibly important to me. So and we already talked about it, so we don't necessarily need to do any further ado. But before Taryn, Daly, you reveal your number one top 10 Bad Religion song, would you care to recap your 10 through 2 for folks that might be just joining us?
Yes. So my 10 was Dearly Beloved. Number 9, Generator. Number 8, No Control. Number 7 is Suffer. Number 6 is Atheist Peace. Number 5, Bored and Extremely Dangerous. Number 4, American Jesus. Number 3, Infected. Number 2, 21st Century Digital Boy. And number 1, drum roll please, I want to conquer the world.
Yes.
that
Very good. I
was
love it.
that was the very first Bad Religion song I ever heard. And then I remember hearing it on a Sublime album and being like, did did they cover Bad Religion? And I actually came to find out that Sublime has covered many, many artists, but Sublime covered that song, and they do a totally different version of it. If you've never listened to it, it's pretty cool.
I don't
But
know if I
apparently,
have. That's
Sublime,
wild.
they were huge fans of Bad Religion too. So it is always really cool to find out like the Eddie Vedders of the world, the Sublimes of the world, how this band has actually influenced them in their music making. But I Want to Conquer the World, I just think it's another one of those like anthemic, like everybody's got their fists in the air singing along. Hands down, one of the best live Bad Religion songs anybody will ever see. But it is, I Want to Conquer the World, give all the idiots a brand new religion, put an end to poverty, uncleanliness, and toil, promote equality in all of my decisions with a good wink of the eye and a God, you must be joking. So, it's just got really, really great sing-along ability. Sing-along ability, is that a word? It is now.
Absolutely.
But yeah, kind of this, that conquering the world is a little bit of that no one's ever going to do it. You can't do it. You're
Right.
never going to. It's an unrealistic thing. You're never going to please everyone. In a perfect world, you imagine all of these things happening, but it's just not a reality. And I really love that song.
Absolutely. Well, and as young punks, that's all we want to do. That's all we want to do is conquer the world. And it is interesting, and that's a fantastic number one. I love it. But it is emblematic of what I was talking about earlier with the changes in Greg's voice. This is the most young Greg song that ever young Greg, because I mean, he's almost whiny. He's like, and I mean, it's just so raw and
He's like
visceral.
screaming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so good. Oh, even I totally missed this. We talked about Generator twice, and we didn't even talk about the scream in it.
Oh yes.
Dang.
Oh.
Yeah, which he does not do anymore.
No, I wouldn't either. That would blow my vocal cords right
Yeah.
out.
Nah, no, especially halfway through a set. You can't do that.
Oh yeah.
All right. So recapping my list, 10 through 2. Number 10, Leaders and Followers. Number 9, Hark, the Herald Angels Sing. Number 8, Sorrow. Number 7, There Will Be a Way. Number 6, Strange Denial. Number 5, Infected. Number 4, Generator. Number 3, Cease. I'm still getting all weepy thinking about it. My number two was American Jesus, and in the anticlimax, my number one is 21st Century Digital Boy.
Whoa, look at that. I had a feeling we were going to have a crossover in the top two.
Absolutely. I mean, you kind of you have to, and
You
and
have
like
to.
and like we were saying, it's like those I would say like our top five, like is really just essential Bad Religion. It's just in terms of like, I think it's that great mix of personal favorites, but also fan favorites. Awesome list. You did an awesome list, my friend. That's very, very
Hey,
cool.
you know what? This was so much fun because let me tell you, this band again has influenced my life at every single stage. Everything is always relevant. Everything is always important. Sometimes I just have to hit the reset button on
Yeah,
like life in general and listen to this band because it really kind of puts everything into perspective for me and kind of reminds me why I do what I do.
absolutely. So we talked about some of the struggles with our top tens. Any honorable mentions that near misses, things that didn't quite make your list? I've got a couple.
Well, another one. So we're only going to die from our own arrogance. That's actually another one that there was a Sublime version of that as well,
Oh,
which I discovered later, in my listenings. But that's one that I really like. What would be another good honorable mention for me? I'm gonna go back through my list. Oh, do what you want. Do what you want of
yes.
Suffer. Oh, that's one that actually that almost took my Suffer spot. It was
Yeah.
really between those two songs off of that album. And at the last minute, I scribbled out "Do What You Want" and put
Hmm.
Suffer instead. But "Do What You Want" has always been a big part of Taryn's life. What about you? What are maybe two more of yours?
I like Won't Somebody. There's three different versions of it. One was first it was an acoustic version on the deluxe version of New Maps of Hell. That wasn't the first place I heard it though. The first place I heard it was the live version on 30 Years Live. And that is still what I think is the most superior version of that song. They did a studio version of it on Descent of Man, which is okay. It's fine, but there was something in that prototype live version where like the arrangement was different. They moved some stuff around, and I really like it. And it was one of those things. We've talked about kind of like sadness and heartbreak. This was a Descent of Man came out right about the time that my grandmother was nearing the end of her time with stage 4 breast cancer. And I remember this song just sticking with me so much where it's just like won't somebody please just come up with something. And I think that that's also very resonant for the times that we're in now, very similar to There Will Be a Way, like I mentioned earlier. uh,
Yeah.
Also, and this is probably the most polarizing song in Bad Religion's catalog, but I love it so much. Raise Your Voice. How do you feel?
Oh yeah. I think that could have very easily been in the top 10
Yeah,
without question.
yeah, fa 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 fa. And I love the part at the beginning where Greg's just like, I think this is a song we could redo in every language of every country we go to, and it's just
Absolutely.
I love when they leave that stuff in, where
Yeah.
just like these weird ad libs and just kind of like the weird, um, um, just kind of like interstitial studio stuff. Beyond Electric Dreams, closing out Empire Strikes First. Again,
Yeah.
very similar in counterpart to say like Bored and Extremely Dangerous, one of those more elaborate production songs.
Totally.
They played that in Seattle the last time they were here, and I think it was like the first time they had played it in like 10 years or something. It's not something
Dang.
they play often. So it was one of those things where it's like, and it takes a while for you to realize what song it is. It's like, oh,
Oh, yeah.
oh. And then finally Sanity. I
Oh,
love,
yeah.
and that's one of those ones where it's just I remember like when I got married, the day I got married to my wife, I was driving, I was listening to that all ages compilation that I was talking about earlier, and just like the whole lyric of "There's a watch in my pocket and its hands are broken," and
Broken.
and I had a pocket watch with my tuxedo, and I just
Random.
and I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, well, but this one works. But it's just for some reason, just that weird association was, when you sometimes associate unrelated lyrics, it's like that has nothing to do with anything. But for some reason, just I've always liked that one.
Yeah, and they sometimes have those songs that are like they're not slower, but they're just slow. They're not slow, but they're slower than the average Bad Religion song. And the cadence of that song, that sanity is a full-time
Yes.
job. It's like they're not speed singing. It's just a cool, like I don't know. I really like the tempo of that song too. It's kind of a nice transition to some of the other songs on that album.
Yeah, it's and with their live sets, and they put some of these songs in, it's like they've almost written songs to build a ideal live set. It's like, because
Yeah,
yeah, it's like, let's
very
take a break.
intentional.
Yeah. And I just think this is great. So, Taryn Daly, this has been so much fun. I think at this point we could talk for hours,
Days.
days, but I think our time is running short. In the listeners of the podcast version, I will go through the comments out on Facebook. I've seen that like a lot of folks in both the Bad Religion Yahey Facebook group, as well as the BR page group, both of them have put in a lot of comments and song recommendations. So I will read those when I edit this all together and put it in the recorded podcast edition. So want to give shout outs to all those fun folks. But yeah, Taryn Daly, before we part ways for now, where can we find you on the internet? And how can we connect with you on the social medias? But most importantly, when can we listen to you on the radio?
Well, you can listen to me actually now Monday through Saturday on 99.9 KISW from 6 p.m. until 10 p.m. Yes, I'm doing Saturdays as well too, keeping you company tonight. Or if you're not watching right now, whenever that next Saturday is coming around. And my handle on Twitter and Instagram is at Taryn, KISW. And if you search for Taryn Daly on Facebook, you should be able to find me right there. And Daly is spelled D-A-L-Y.
Awesome, very cool. And anything exciting or that you've got coming up that you want to promo real quick before we part ways?
Well, this is just something really cool that I'll let you know. I went to WSU, go Cougs. And so I'm a proud Coug. And I'm actually going to be doing an alumni spotlight in a couple weeks with a gal
Cool.
for Washington State University Magazine to kind of talk about like what it's like to be working from home in radio and just kind of the crazy times that we're living in right now. So I'm really excited to be a WSU Cougar Spotlight. So that'll be coming in just a couple weeks. I will make sure to share it on all my socials, and I would love for anyone to check it out.
Wonderful. That sounds awesome. I love it. And that will about wrap things up for this week's show. Thank you so much for watching, all of you out there in live streaming YouTube land. You will be able to hear this on the Mike Seibert Radio podcast feed in a couple weeks, where I'm going to do some extra production to it. I'm going to stitch in some samples of the songs that we were talking about, as well as keep those shout outs coming. I'll do a whole section where it's all listener feedback, because I got a lot at like the last minute, and unfortunately just don't have time to go through all of it right now. And if you want to listen to my podcast, Mike Seibert Radio, subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can check out the full show archive out on SoundCloud. Like, share, rate, and review the show. Let us know what you like and what you'd like to hear more of in the future. Mike Seibert Radio is produced by Dave Sanders and is powered by Poddex. For Mike Seibert Radio, my name is Mike.
I'm Taryn Daly.
And until next time, wash your hands and make good choices.
Bye.
Yeah, hey.
Yeah, hey. That was so fun.
Very cool. Very cool.